Everywhere Jesus went, large crowds followed him. Everyone wanted to hear the amazing things that he was saying, and everyone wanted to see this man perform his miracles. So Jesus would teach to them day after day. Well, one day, after teaching to a huge crowd of people, Jesus told his disciples that he wanted to go to the other side of the sea. So Jesus said goodbye to the crowd, and he and his disciples got into a boat and started out into the water. Well, Jesus was really tired, so he laid down to take a nap. It was an easy trip by boat. The waves and wind gently pushed them across the lake. But as time passed, the skies grew darker, the wind picked up, and the waves began to rock the boat more and more. But Jesus continued to sleep. The waves began to get a little bigger, and the wind began to blow harder, and eventually they ended up in the middle of a huge storm. The waves crashed over the boat while thunder boomed and rain poured down. Lightning lit up the sky, and the wind pushed them farther and farther into the sea. Well, the disciples, they were terrified, but Jesus continued to sleep. Now remember, several of the disciples had been fishermen. They lived on boats and they'd seen many storms. But this storm, it was scaring even them. This was one of the worst storms that they had ever been in. And the disciples couldn't believe that Jesus was sleeping through it. They didn't know what Jesus could do about such a powerful storm, but they wanted to wake him up so that they could see that they were in danger. Well, the wind and the waves continued to toss the boat so much that they were afraid the boat was going to get torn apart and they'd sink. They made their way over to Jesus to wake him up. And they said, Jesus, wake up. Don't you care that we're going to drown? Save us. Well, Jesus sat up and looked at the scared men. He asked them why they were so scared. And he asked them why their faith was so small. Well, the men, they couldn't understand why Jesus wasn't as scared as them. I mean, didn't Jesus understand how bad this storm was? Didn't Jesus know that the boat couldn't take much more from the crashing waves and the wind? Didn't Jesus know that soon they would all be in the water? Well, the truth is, Jesus understood the situation much more than his disciples. And Jesus, he wasn't scared at all. He knew exactly what was going to happen. You see, Jesus stood up and he ordered the storm to stop. He said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the waves died down. The wind stopped, the rain stopped, and it became completely calm. The men were beyond amazed at Jesus' power. In fact, they were probably even a little scared of how powerful he was. They couldn't understand how a man, even a man like Jesus, could stop a storm. Well, the disciples had seen Jesus do a lot of things. He'd healed so many people who were sick. He'd seen them do, let me start that paragraph over. The disciples had seen Jesus do a lot of things. He'd healed many people who were sick. He'd done a lot of miraculous things. But this was something different. This was far beyond making a sick man better or healing someone who couldn't walk. They'd just seen Jesus stop a storm. You see, Jesus was so much more powerful than even the disciples realized. Jesus is the Son of God. And the disciples, they had just seen the Son of God command the wind and the waves. And the wind and the waves, they obeyed.